Let's get to this week's news.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North and South America, and all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press.
Game news.
First up in game news, hey, we're reviewing a Stefan Feld game, and there happens to be not one but two pieces of Stefan Feld news right now. Just dropped. So it turns out that Queen Games is a German publisher that they tend to make big box, very beautiful games. Some of the games I have by them are games like Wallenstein. They made Stefan Feld's Merlin, which is a horrible game, so don't get it, but stunningly gorgeous.
Highly anticipated.
Oh, it was the first when Trey and Matt and I were at Essen. It was literally the first thing we made a beeline to get. Got it. First game we set up, played it the first night, and we're like, huh. And none of us wanted to be the first one to say it, but we're like, so what are you thinking about the game? I don't know. I'd rather hear. Oh, Matt, what are you thinking about the game? This game is not good. Anyway, Queen Games is putting out two new games. They're putting out a game called Hamburg and a game called Amsterdam, but hold your horses. We're not exactly getting two new Stefan Feld games because one of them is basically a redo of Macau, and the other one is a redo of Bruges. So Hamburg is a redo of Bruges, and Macau's redo is Amsterdam. My understanding is that the rules changes to the game are going to be relatively minimal. There may be a few, but it's not going to be a hugely different game. If you've never played Bruges or Macau, they're very good. This is during Stefan Feld's period where basically he could do no wrong. I think Macau was in 2009 and Bruges was 2013. And he was just pumping out hit after hit. Now, they're Stefan Feld games, so they are very, very point salady, meaning there's lots of different ways to get points. And the key of the game is trying to figure out what mechanism by which you can get more points than everyone else is hoovering up each and every round. My favorite Stefan Feld game is still Castles of Burgundy. I think it's a classic by any definition. But I enjoy very much playing Macau, and Bruges. I think I only played once, but I recall liking it as well. Have you guys played either of those?
I have not. It sounds like they're reskins, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have not. I think by the time I started getting into the hobby, I don't know if aside from literally in the Year of the Dragon, I can't. And Burgundy, I don't actually know of another one I played.
Bora Bora, by any chance?
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
I definitely haven't played either of these, but they look sort of familiar. The artwork and the caricatures on the cards kind of remind me of something that I've definitely played with you.
I mean, you have seen Macau on my shelf. I don't have it any.
Yeah.
I don't have it anymore, but I have. But I did own the game for a long period of time, and I kind of now looking at Amsterdam and Hamburg, they're beautiful. They're doing the city collection basically. All these games are going to be built around famous cities, and when you stack them up sideways to each other on a shelf, on a gaming shelf, each one has a spire from that city. So the third game in the collection is going to be New York, and the fourth one is going to be Marrakesh, and Marrakesh is going to have that minaret. And New York has the Empire State Building, and it's really
and they're all blended together. I'm looking at a picture of it, and it's actually quite cool the way they blend it together.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Although here's a sort of casual gamer question for you, which is this something that is normal in the industry? Is reskinning something that has been going on for a while, or is this like a new trend where they take an old favorite and just basically repaint it?
I wouldn't say that it is common, but it's also not unheard of, and it's not unheard of going back quite some time. So I would say probably about 10 years ago, things started to be reskinned to some degree, based on all sorts of things. Like, wow, this game, a publisher says, this is a great game. Why didn't people buy it? Well, maybe it's the theme. Let's
I seem to recall a good example of that was with Dune, right? Didn't they just recently redo that imagery?
For a different reason, yes. So Dune has been reskinned many times. So the first thing that happened is Fantasy Flight took Dune, and the problem is the rights to the title Dune were very problematic, right? The family of Frank Herbert, who owns Dune, didn't extend whatever. They couldn't get the rights to it. So Fantasy Flight saying, hey, there's this amazing game from the 70s. Nobody can get it. There's very few copies out there. People are paying hundreds of dollars to get one of these copies. You can't copyright a game mechanic. So what if we create a game that has all of the rules of Dune, just set in a different universe? And hey, we have Twilight Imperium, so let's set it in the Twilight Imperium universe. And that's how they made the game Rex. And they were able to make a game that was basically like that. And now the rights to Dune have opened up again with the new movie coming out and so on and so forth. So Gale Force 9 put out a new reskin of Dune that's really not changed. I mean, they're making Dune. They're just, they tried to upgrade the look of the game, really. So, but yeah, that's
interesting.
That's you're absolutely right, Jake. That is something that is done, and I think with good reason. Now, I don't think there was anything wrong with Bruges or with Macau, so maybe this one is a little bit more of a money grab. But then again, if it's going to introduce people to games like, Paul plays a lot of games, and if he's only played 2 Felds in his life, maybe this is exactly the kind of thing. Maybe a new game reintroducing
new
an old
generation.
mechanic.
Yeah,
might be a way for people like Paul or like me. Like I said, I only played Bruges once, I think, to reacquire an old classic. I think that's not a bad idea.
Cool.
Next up, something called Fort. Fort is okay. So of all the news this week, Fort is the thing I am most fascinated by. Fort itself is kind of a reskin or a redo. It is based on a game from a few years back called SPQR, it was basically, if you go around Italy or around the Mediterranean, you will see those letters everywhere. It was the tag that the Romans put on every building that they could. It was the rule of their empire. SPQR is a card-based drafting game. And it's one of these, it's a very interesting game in that you have a hand of 5 cards or so, and on a given turn, you're going to play one of them to activate it. Then much like Glory to Rome, which is a game that we know and love from Carl Chudyk, other people can then glom onto that action by playing a card with a matching symbol. They're able to also partake of the main action that you're doing each round. The interesting thing about SPQR was that the other cards that you have left over, the ones that you haven't used to follow somebody else's action, and the one that you're not playing this round, they go out in front of you, and those cards are able to be acquired by the other players at the table. So instead of just drawing blindly from a deck of cards, you can actually construct your next hand using the cards that your opponent didn't use. And that's a very, very interesting mechanic. But SPQR itself didn't really crush it. I think maybe people were tired of the Roman theme, or they didn't feel it was unique enough. Fort is a really great theme. It is it's a game that plays in 20 to 40 minutes, 2 to 4 players, and you're a kid. And like many kids, you want to get a bigger circle of friends, you want to grab pizza and toys, and you want to build the best fort. So it's a deck building game where you're trying to build the best fort. And when you play cards, you're getting pizza tokens and toy tokens, and the cards have suits like skateboard, shovel, glue, squirt gun, right?
Yeah, the artwork is really good. As someone who's drawn into that, part of it, I know it doesn't super matter to you, but the artwork's really cool.
Yeah. No, well, listen, I'm talking about the theme. I'm saying what really ignites me about it is that I love the mechanics. I love the mechanics of the design already, and the theme just seems really fun and really fresh.
Yeah.
Right?
I completely agree. It looks really cool.
Paul, did you have a fort growing up?
Did I have a fort growing up? It was what we did every Saturday morning. Like I would wake up at 6 a.m. I would just make the fort with my brother, and we'd watch Saturday morning cartoons until about 11 a.m. At which point we just went outside, and the fort would just stay up until my dad or mom got upset with it, and then we had to put it away.
So this is a couch fort?
Yes, sure. It's more like a pillow blanket couch fort. Like,
yes.
Yes. So
that's why
that's what I did. I didn't have like wood or a hammer to
Aiden and Saleya, Aiden and Saleya have been doing that. I did that for years and years and years, and all I wanted to do was come out and relax on a Saturday morning, and I couldn't. There was nowhere to sit because all of the cushions and everything were all over the place.
Sure.
What about you, Jake? Growing up, fort?
I'm a New York City kid, so it's not like I had a backyard, but pillow forts were definitely something that I enjoyed. I had bunk beds, and so we'd always hang the sheet over the top, and like that underneath the bottom bunk would be the spot. And it's something that I do with my kid nowadays. It's really fun.
I growing up in suburban New Jersey, I did have actual forts. We had tree fort, and then these kids that were older than us, they actually dug a pit fort. They dug a fort that was like 6 feet deep.
That's legit.
That's a trench.
Well, no. It was wide, and they had board over it, and then they put dirt over the board and like little trees and stuff like that, so you couldn't see where
BB guns and things in the bottom. Also,
there was some stuff going on. I was a little too young and naive to know about it, but we would go and we would hang out in that as well. And our tree fort lasted a really long time, and there was a train tracks not far behind my house, and we would get to see the train coming like a long way away, and we would run out and put pennies on the track, and the train would flatten them for us and stuff like that. So that was
wow. So let me ask you this: did you grow up on the right side of the tracks or the wrong side of the tracks?
I actually did grow up on the right side of the tracks, and there was a difference. It was how I think one of the reasons that I'm somewhat liberal in this world is because of this realization I had. Most of my friends were on the other side of the tracks, but I was on this side. My side of the tracks, the houses had bigger yards, right? And the houses were a little bit bigger. Houses on the other side of the tracks, they were a little smushed together more, right? They were just a little closer together more. And, that on my side of the tracks, a lot of the dads would commute into New York City for their jobs. On the other side of the tracks, a lot of my friends, their dads had jobs in the factories in town, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But so they wanted to come over to my side of the tracks because we didn't have a pool, but there were some kids that had pools and stuff like that, and that was always on my side of the tracks. So we would come in and hang out and do that sort of stuff. But every Halloween, we knew that you want to get the good candy, you go to the other side of the tracks. The houses that are...
I love it.
Because I learned that the wealthier people did not give good candy. Some of them didn't give candy at all. They kept that. That's why they live on that side of the tracks. They kept.
God, isn't that just a microcosm for the whole world, right there?
They kept their stuff, and the other side of the tracks, they didn't have much, but they gave freely, and that has always stuck with me. And it's one of those lessons that it's not somebody telling me something. It's not some study. It's not some analysis.
Sure.
It is me on the ground knowing, and nobody does research like an 8-year-old trying to figure out their optimal candy route on Halloween.
Yeah, and it's peer reviewed too, so it has to be correct.
It is.
Absolutely. It was mob rules on that one.
It was a very large study conducted over a number of years.
That's right. There you go.
Anyway, Fort is going to be coming out not too long from now, and it looks great. I would highly recommend that everybody check it out and see what's going on. I don't really have a date on it, but we'll try and get that next week. Next up, weirdest theming of the year. I'm calling it here. Daimyo, Rebirth of the Empire. Paul, can you explain what this game is about?
I think it's alternate reality Bushido, not Japan, maybe.
I think it's post-apocalyptic Bushidos fighting over like a huge swath of land. It's like long after the end of the time of man, remnants of humanity have come back together, and they're in an archipelago, and they are living according to the Bushido Code and stuff like that. Look, I'm not just talking about this to make fun of it. I'm actually talking about
and
it.
Yet.
And yeah, well, I'm not going to make fun of it. Look, there's a lot of things we can talk about. We could talk about theme. We could talk about gameplay. We could talk about all sorts of things. I'm going to start with theme because it's bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre. I don't get it. The publisher is Boîte de Jeu. Its designer is Jeremy Secret, so it could be a French thing. Who knows?
No,
Maybe it makes perfect sense in a different language, but it's a little weird here. That said, this game looks really interesting. This is a dice drafting, dice placement, dice management game, which already piques my interest because some of those designs recently have been very good. There's a card play element. There's a area control element. It seems to be one of these games that involves a lot of different disparate elements. And the early reviews from some very good people, the early reviews have been good. The early reviews are saying this should not work, but it kind of really does. So
miniatures look super cool.
They're neat, aren't they?
They're super cool. Again, just my perspective. I'm always just looking at that kind of thing. It looks super cool.
So does it come with miniatures or does it come with meeples? Because it has pictures of both.
I guess both? I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I can't tell you the answer to that. But
cubes, and I see the meeples, but they also have these pictures here. I don't know why they'd show them if you can't have them.
listen, we are in the era where there are Kickstarter upgrades and so on and so forth. Maybe that is what this is.
Sure, maybe.
Could be.
Why not?
Not exactly sure. This is going to be on Kickstarter. It's on Kickstarter today, actually. Yeah, it's on now. It's going to be on Kickstarter until the 30th, and should be coming out in 2021. So we got a little bit of time here, but it's out there. Check it out on Kickstarter. You might be tickled by the theme. You might be entranced by the different rules and rule sets that they're combining to make a kind of pretty interesting game from the looks of it. It looks like it's pretty deep. It's a real civilization builder of sorts, which is kind of cool. And last but not least, we have Pandemic Legacy Zero. We announced it last week. This week we have some more details. Turns out this version of Pandemic Legacy is going to take place all the way back in 1962. The Cold War is in full swing, and there's a Soviet bioweapon, Project Medusa. Our job is we are CIA agents / virologists, and we are going to try and snuff out this project before it brings doom. So in almost every other version of pandemic, almost every, I think the Roman pandemic is different, but in almost every other pandemic, the cubes are viruses. And when they get too big, they break out and spread, right? In this game, the cubes seem to be Soviet agents. And so you're trying to actually manage a Cold War spy thriller in the realm of a pandemic game, which I think that sounds pretty interesting to me. What do you guys think?
I think it hits a little bit too close to home for me, personally.
Oh,
I don't know.
Because your parents were Soviet sleeper agents?
That's exactly it.
Okay,
not because we're in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know. It's just like, hey, you know what I don't want to escape into a world of? The same world I'm escaping. But okay.
Maybe they made the right choice then, because it's really not about a pandemic this time, right? It's really sort of more cloak and daggery type stuff. What do you think, Paul? You like the original Pandemic, right?
Nope. It's cooperative, right? Like, I'm always going to have a hard time with cooperative games because of who I am as a person. My virtues and vices make it really hard to play, enjoy that type of game.
Well, I mean, in general, in Pandemic, it's all the people at the table playing against the game itself, right?
Yep.
But
sure.
when we play that with you, it's almost all the people around the table playing against Paul and the game itself.
Yeah, no,
right.
I think Pandemic had the bioterrorist option, right? Like on occasion, if you played with enough people.
Yes.
And and that would definitely be a shift from cooperative to what you call it, asymmetrical, hidden, blah blah
Yes.
blah, and that's so much more interesting to me. But what I find when I play Pandemic, and this is because on the Myers-Briggs, I'm a ENTJ. What'll happen is I'll just want to tell everyone what to do, and when people do it, they don't have fun, and when I shut up, I don't have fun.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance for my personality type to deal with that, because usually there's a right way, and whereas other games hey, you do what you want, you go that way, you get you fall into a pit, that's on you, but we all fall into the same pit if we go the wrong way, and it's just a tension that's not very good for me.
It's the classic alpha player problem, and
Okay.
you are particularly prone to it. I've noticed that as well. That's
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
listen.
yeah.
the only winning move is not to play.
Well, it's something that weighs very, very heavily on my conscience.
Speaking of conscience, we do have one last little piece of news, which is Elizabeth Hargrave, the amazing designer of Wingspan, was on fire on Twitter this week. She posted a thread. I highly recommend that you go and check it out. I will just read the very top of it, and it says, "Every time one of us says in some way it's hard to be a woman, person of color, LGBT person in board games, there are people who always say some version of that can't be true. I've never seen a gamer, publisher, blank, 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 be sexist, racist, or homophobic. Let's break this down." And then she gets into all the reasons that comment is hurtful and ignorant and wrong. We talked about everything board games, and that was virtually exactly the statement that the owner of that site, that blog, posted. And I highly recommend that if we're looking for a more inclusive hobby, that we should check out what Elizabeth Hargrave had to say about it. She is wonderfully eloquent about it, very, very specific, and really challenges us to be better as a hobby. And
I completely agree. I was glad you sent me this link in preparation for the app, because I read the entire thing, and yes, exactly what you said. She's extremely eloquent, and it's worth looking at if you have any kind of interest in this hobby at all, because she makes some really good points.
100%.
Yeah. I found it a little depressing, just because he had.
Oh yeah, no question. It is.
It's yeah. There's just that side, right?
Also, what are you gonna do?
Anyway, but it is the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I'm heartened by things like this, because the depressing thing is being put, is being shown what's going on, right? That's the depressing thing. The reality is that this is there. This is there. It's there right now. It has always been there, and by putting some light on it is the only way we're going to change things. And so I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we're going to change things.
Good.
In so many ways.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.